Okay, apparently this guy is suing Minecraft because I've freaking stumbled upon this video that he made called Suing Minecraft because they broke the law and pissed me off. Very straight and to the point. I appreciate that. I believe he's suing them because they broke a British law. I've just heard that in passing since, I think, because this video's been on trending for a while, but I've been meaning to get to it. So let's see what the story is, dude.
This is Minecraft, a blog game created in 2011 by Mojang, which I'm suing for breaking the law and pissing me off. But to understand why I'm
I mean, listen, I do not feel clickbaited, so I guess that was the goal.
Doing this, we need to go back to December of 2022. You see,
Let's go
Minecraft
back
is a game
to
where
the
anyone
sack.
can add anything, even if it wasn't part of the original game. And what I wanted to do was recreate an old game I used to play in 2013 called MC War that unfortunately shut down. And after months of development and growing the community that was eager to play the game on launch, we finally set the release date to the 2nd of June of 2023. And this is where everything went wrong. Because only one day after posting the release date, a tweet was posted stating that Mojang enforcement, basically the guys that enforce the terms of service, threatened to take down a server called GTM because a new directive from Mojang leadership had determined that guns and weapons are considered non-compliant features under the adult content requirement.
What? So you can't have guns in Minecraft? That seems okay, but also kind of limiting. I mean, even Roblox has weapons and stuff.
For commercial usage servers, and that they now have to be completely removed because they're against the brand guidelines, usage guidelines,
That's for
and
babies,
end-user
right?
license agreement. So basically, after months of development and thousands of dollars spent on marketing, yes, this thing costs $1,000, everything was completely wasted because it's now prohibited. So as you can imagine, all servers that contain guns basically entered panic mode because we were all about to be annihilated by Mojang. A group with...
Yeah, that sounds like some crazy, like, over ham-fisted Nintendo type shit.
All of these owners was created to discuss and potentially negotiate, asking very valid questions such as, how come servers that have had firearms for well over a decade so far have never had any issues but are suddenly prohibited? Why is it okay for Mojang's own marketplace, where they get a cut of every sale, to have guns when we don't get to have them? And what exactly do they mean by guns and...
Wait, so they sell guns already? They already do this. These are fine? Then what's the difference? Can't you just change the name of yours to whatever This is okay. Blaster 2.0. Make the 7.0. But it's really a Glocky.
From Mojang's own marketplace, where they get a cut of every sale, to have guns when we don't get to have them. And what exactly do they mean by guns and weapons and suitable for children? Because it's totally not like there are thousands
Because, I mean, they can't be both.
literally have guns and weapons in them that are made for children. And it's totally not like Minecraft itself has explosive crossbows, which are a firearm in most jurisdictions, by the way, gunpowder, bombs, swords, poison, insulation, slavery, you get the idea. To which Mojang, after conveniently ignoring half these points, replied that this recent directive from Mojang leadership wasn't for guns and weapons, but was purely for guns and firearms. Isn't that change convenient? But hey, what would I know? It's not like Mojang hides information from the public for illicit reasons, right? This is called foreshadow. So since Mojang didn't exactly explain what qualified as a real-life weapon, we went ahead and asked, is this a weapon? What about this? Which, again, completely ignored. And after demanding more answers, they eventually said on June 13th that the key decision makers are on holiday. So I guess we'll just have to wait until these key decision makers stop being on vacation. But hey, it's not like it's gonna take 6 months is how long it took them to reply. And the thing about having your entire project's existence be based off of the decision of a CEO that is on vacation is that you can't really justify investing into development or marketing when it could all go to shit if they don't change their minds. We were essentially told that even though the decision is not final, guns are okay for now, which is a different way of saying, but we will be changing our minds later. We just can't afford any more bad press right now because this entire thing has hit the news and got millions of people to be mad at us for being assholes. And while that could have been the end of it, while these assholes spent half a year replying, I was investigating whether this entire fiasco could have been illegal. And oh boy, this entire fiasco started because a new directive reinterpreted adult content in the end user license agreement, in other words EULA, to include guns and firearms and hence prohibit them. These clauses that are written in the EULA are more commonly known as a terms of service. This is what's called a click wrap agreement. It's the thing that forces you to check it before signing up for service. It's essentially a set of rules that you have to follow when using the service, but the thing you have to understand is that this is a type of legally binding agreement or otherwise contract.
Okay, I feel like we've entered the breaking the law part of the video. We've finished off with the pissed off how they pissed him off, which admittedly does sound pretty annoying, dude. Freaking if I was working on a project and it really depended on you guys not suddenly banning guns on a whim, sorta kinda, yeah, that would be pretty annoying. And maybe it is. I mean, I don't freaking know what Minecraft's plan is, but let's listen to this guy, because apparently he knows. He's dug into it.
Some third world countries like the United States, where companies can get away with writing anything into the contract, like, you can't sue us because we said so. Mojang is in Sweden, and Sweden is in Europe. And in Europe, we are supposed to have competent governments that have things like consumer protection laws and contract law. Not how I said supposed to. This is important for later. In Mojang's first email, they say that under the new directive, guns and firearms are not compliant. They follow it up saying that these activities are specifically prohibited by the Mojang brand guidelines, guidelines that literally do not exist, but which they cite multiple times anyways, the commercial guidelines, and the EULA. Now, let's go ahead and look at the actual contract for these specific prohibitions. And oh, would you look at that? It hasn't been updated at all since April of 2020, which is over 3 years ago. And and these specific prohibitions that they mentioned are nowhere to be found. It's almost as if they pulled it out of their ass. Remember how I mentioned that it's not like Mojang
What was
hides
it doing in there? Was it in Notch's ass? Whose ass? Bill Gates' ass? Microsoft's ass? Whose ass?
from the public for illicit reasons. Right? Well, it turns out that this new directive that prohibits guns, which Mojang enforces as if it was part of the EULA, isn't actually on the EULA. So this information is hidden, only known to Mojang, and not written anywhere. And since it can't be found anywhere and is literally pulled out of their ass, they can change it as many times as they want, which they have. 3 times. Now, you might be asking what the problem is, since at the end they did tell us what we need to do to comply. And you see, Sweden and Europe, which Sweden is a part of, have these things called consumer protection laws and contract law that dictates how a contract is allowed to be written. And by looking just a little bit in Europe's website, you can see that contract must be fair, transparent, and cannot have unfair terms. Like, for example, a get-out clause such as all permissions and consents may be revoked at any time if we think that it is appropriate to do so, or we don't like what you are doing. If that—
Whoa. It sounds like they're being awfully strict on being wishy-washy there. Thank God I don't live there.
Hidden terms, one-sided changes to a contract, one-sided changes to a product or service, one-sided interpretation of the contract. Doesn't that sound familiar? And after contacting the European Union's legal advisors, I was told that misleading omissions, basically hiding information, is a form of unfair commercial practice where Mojang fails to give information to the consumer, and that all relevant information needs to be present, and that it also misleading omission if Mojang provides the consumer with information but does so in an unclear, unintelligible, or ambiguous, loosely worded way. It's almost as if they're not allowed to have hidden clauses. Where I am then encouraged to sue before the home court, because all the time and resources I put into my project have essentially gone to shit. So now that we've covered that Mojang hiding shit from the public in a contract is illegal under European consumer protection laws, on top of things like the contract proferentum doctrine—
Imagine getting your whole company bodied by this guy in jorts, dude. He's getting them.
It basically says that if something is loosely worded, I'm the one that gets to choose how to interpret it. But Kian, why go through all this trouble? This is probably just a mistake by Mojang, a one-off thing. It's not like Mojang does a ton more illegal shit. Right?
I don't know.
Now, when all of this started, I never wanted this to be a lawsuit. I simply expected Mojang to not be assholes and be reasonable. And the way I tried to do this was by collecting all of this information and sending it to media outlets and news sources, knowing that it would create a ton of backlash that Mojang simply couldn't ignore.
Mojang is set to release,
according to their new guidelines,
Mojang no longer being the kind company.
It didn't work. Even though the information got millions of views, Mojang just played the good old do nothing and the problem will just go away. But now I am here, you pieces of shit. But then, while we were waiting 6 months for the key figures to stop being on vacation, on the 2nd of August 2023, Mojang did the worst thing they've ever done. They updated the EULA that had been unchanged since 2020 and tried to hide the fact that they had changed it by not telling anyone about it and releasing it at the same time as a major game update.
Snapshot content, really cool. EULA changes, very important. Which one gets announced on Twitter? This snapshot. Is one being used to mask the other?
Putting all of their efforts into marketing the game update so people wouldn't notice the EULA update. They never notified anybody about it. Now, under consumer protection laws, when a company changes its terms of service, it is required to notify its users about said changes before they take effect. Which is the reason you get all of these annoying emails that say, hey, we've changed our terms of service. Mojang tried covering it up. But not only did Mojang not notify anybody of these changes on top of covering it up, but they also added that
these guidelines may change as time goes by. We reserve the right to change our minds at any time. So don't count on these guidelines always being here. It is up—
Okay, the other translation says, fuck you, we're not gonna tell you and change the rules, and we don't want to be responsible for notifying you when we do. That does sound very American. God, I love the USA.
To you to check back to see if these guidelines—
This would never fly here.
I wasn't gonna let them get away with hiding that. After analyzing the contract and putting all the shitty parts together, I sent the information forward to basically everyone. And oh boy,
Mojang updated its EULA.
Minecraft has gone full 1984.
What's going on here? Man, the Minecraft situation looks crazy in this circumstance.
Now, to say that this blew up in their face would be a little bit of an understatement. It got so bad that
a handful of creators were reached out to by Mojang and given a heads up. Attached were answers and guidance to clear up the confusion.
That's right. Select figures were grouped up by Mojang and given information that wasn't publicly available to try and calm it down a bit. Information that should be present in the contract by law. And just when you thought it couldn't get any worse, they forced every single one of these members to sign a non-disclosure agreement that forbids them from giving out any information that they were told for a contract that should be publicly available. I bet they didn't think I'd find out, but I know lots of things. So now that we've covered that they hide changes from the contract, force select people to sign non-disclosure agreements for changes that should be publicly available on the contract, refuse to notify about these changes, and try to cover it up, it can't possibly get any worse, right?
Got worse,
In the end-user license agreement, they specifically state twice that any form of gambling, violent terrorism, or other unsafe and mature content is strictly forbidden. Which totally makes sense, but what if I told you that the gambling part was a lie? You see, in Minecraft, when you look at any of the biggest servers, you'll quickly notice a recurring pattern in their shops. They have something called crates and crate keys. These keys are used to play lotteries inside of the game that have a chance to give you extremely overpowered items or more money than anyone else. Almost like a casino with extremely similar tactics that are made to get you addicted and turn a profit. Theoretically speaking, under Mojang's own rules, this should be completely forbidden as it's clearly gambling, even by Sweden's own definitions of gambling. But it turns out that there's a separate list of hidden terms, just like in the gun case, that allows gambling to take place, which has led to thousands of children getting gambling addictions. I spoke to them.
I was around 8 years old when I first started gambling on Minecraft servers at 14. I wanted the overpowered armor. It was about feeling cool and getting strong. Give me a chance to...
Yikes, dude. Freaking, we've heard this story time and time again, dude. The casual gambling. It's a big problem in games these days, for sure. I'm gonna skip this part, though, because don't care, didn't ask. Gambling, snoozeville.
Company, where our own
F-tier
government
addiction.
and gambling institutions have some of the strictest laws in the world related to gambling that completely bar anyone below 18 years old from playing, even going as far as to requiring bank ID authentication to play a scratch-off ticket. And Mojang just allows it. So now that I've shown any kind of competition, as if that doesn't sound
even
like
my
some
camera
company
turned
that
off
has
because it
recently
didn't
been hit
care.
by billions in fines from Europe. It's time to move on to the lawsuit. Since Mojang has shown that they really don't give a shit about the law, a lawsuit is really the only way to get them to realize that your actions have consequences. How do you actually sue?
But what if they don't care about the law? What's the suit gonna do
Owned by
about
an
it?
even bigger $1 trillion corporation. It's quite easy, actually. All you need to do is hire a lawyers.
Oh boy.
Are extremely expensive. So when you're legally broke to the point of having to live in an underground basement filled with radioactive gas, that's unfortunately not a joke. How are you supposed to finance justice?
This guy is actually surviving on a on a different planet or something. What the fuck?
I said, here in Europe, we are supposed to have competent governments. This is where that becomes important. When someone in the European Union has rights guaranteed by the Charter of Human Rights, like for example Article 38, consumer protection, if that person does not have enough money to seek out justice, according to Article 47, you should have the right to an effective remedy before a tribunal and a fair and public hearing where everyone shall have the possibility of being advised, defended, and represented. In other words, even if you're broke, according to the Charter of Human Rights, you are entitled to seek out justice. Every country in Europe needs to comply with this charter to be part of the European Union. And Sweden's way of doing this is through Rättshjälpsmyndigheten, the legal aid institution, which according to their own website provides remuneration of legal aid for up to 100 hours of work unless
Imagine receiving legal aid. I have not much longer to live
otherwise determined by
due
a
to
court.
my legal
After
aid.
contacting hundreds of lawyers, I received information that is hidden from the institution's website. The first one is that when a lawyer has to work with a client that has legal aid, they are forced to reduce their hourly rate to a rättshjälpstaxa, which is often less than 40% of what they usually charge an hour. This basically means that the overwhelming majority of lawyers I contacted simply refused to take the case, and that the ones that were willing to do so were extremely inexperienced.
Something to do with the blood cells or something, dude. There's a lot of European legalese going on here, but apparently Minecraft, they're cooked, dude. I'll link this full video down below if you want to hear the whole story, dude. But what do you think about this? Do you think Minecraft needs to, actually don't know what he's asking for.
Supposed to uphold the justice has failed to do so.
I really want to give up because, like, at this point, I've tried everything. There's just nothing more that I can do. My friends convinced me to try one last thing because this isn't about me anymore. It's about all of us, all of you. If Mojang gets away with this, they're setting the precedent and they can do whatever they want, and we have no rights whatsoever. So I'm opening a crowdfunding campaign for legal fees so that maybe, just maybe, we're able to hold Mojang accountable for everything they've done as a community, because if we don't fight, nobody will.
Alrighty. To think this all could have just not even been a thing if you just didn't have your dumb double standards, dude. Should have let the blasters gonna blast. Now you're getting blasted.